Welcome back to the season premiere of history's deadliest reality show, Survivor Tudor Edition. You probably thought the drama peaked when Anne Boleyn lost her head. You thought, surely it can't get messier than publicly beheading your baby mama, right? Oh, honey, no. You are so wrong. That was just the pilot episode. Henry VIII, the original gaslighter and the biggest walking red flag in human history, is just getting warmed up. Let's do a quick vibe check, shall we? Throw those dusty textbooks in the trash. Forget the majestic portraits of a powerful, handsome king. That guy is gone. The Henry we are dealing with now is a straight-up nightmare. Picture a 50-year-old man, massively obese, smelling like a trash can in July because of a rotting, oozing leg ulcer that literally never heals. He is a biological hazard with a crown, but the smell isn't even the scary part. It's his ego. It is more fragile than a cheap iPhone screen. One wrong look, one bad joke, or one no in the bedroom, and snip, you are deleted from existence. He isn't swiping right for love anymore. He isn't looking for a soulmate. He's hunting. He is looking for a nurse, a therapist, an ego stroker, and a fresh victim to fill the void where his conscience used to be and maybe fill his empty bank account too. We have 4 women left in the queue, 4 contestants walking blindfolded into a marriage with a toxic narcissist who has the legal authority to execute his exes. 4 women, 1 rotting king, the survival odds. Let's just say they are lower than winning the Powerball. It's basically Russian roulette, but the gun is loaded with an axe. Who makes it out alive? Who gets rich? And who ends up as a ghost story? Do you think you could survive him? Grab your popcorn and hide your neck. Let's see. POV, you are Jane Seymour. Current status, the rebound. Your mission, I can fix him. Spoiler, you absolutely cannot. Let's set the scene. You are literally standing in the splash zone of the executioner's block. You just watched your former boss, Anne Boleyn, the smartest, most girl boss woman in England, get her head sliced off because she dared to have an opinion. Most people would pack their bags and run for the hills. But you look at Henry VIII, a walking red flag with a crown, and think, yeah, I can totally handle this. I'm built different. Delusional? Absolutely. Your family, the Seymour, sees an opening in the market. They realize that Henry is suffering from a massive vibe shift. He's tired of smart. He's tired of sassy. He wants a human sedative. So your brothers go full stage mom mode. They coach you to be the anti-Anne. If Anne was fire, you need to be unseasoned oatmeal. If Anne was a debate club champion, you need to be a mime. Your strategy is simple but lethal: weaponized virginity. You play the tradwife card before it was a TikTok trend. You return his love letters unopened. You clutch your pearls until your knuckles turn white. You tell him your flower garden is closed for business until he puts a ring on it. Henry, who is used to getting whatever he wants, loses his entire mind. He's obsessed. He thinks your refusal is purity. We know it's just industrial strength manipulation, but hey, if it works, it works. Write the wedding, the ultimate cringe fest. Let's talk about the timeline because it is messy. You marry Henry exactly 11 days after Anne's head rolls. 11 days. That is not a romance. That is a crime scene cleanup. That is the Tudor equivalent of proposing at your ex's funeral while the body is still warm. Is it classy? Not even close. Is it desperate? 100%. But you secured the bag. You are now the Queen of England. The reality check, the velvet incubator. But here is where the fairy tale turns into a horror movie. You thought you were getting a husband. Think again. You signed up to be a biological vessel. Henry doesn't want a partner. He wants a 3D printer for a male heir with a warranty attached. Your life becomes a soft era nightmare. Henry treats you like fine china that's about to crack. He stuffs you with quail. Literally, he imports birds from France because you have cravings. He redecorates your bedroom into a velvet oven. Thick curtains, zero ventilation, dark corners. It's designed to keep the baby safe, but it basically feels like being buried alive. You have no personality, you have no voice, you are just a walking womb with a crown. The climax mission accomplished? Sort of. Finally, the moment of truth. After hours of screaming and splitting in half, you do the one thing no other wife could manage. You push out a son, Edward VI, boom, mission accomplished. The confetti cannons go off. Henry is weeping with joy. The kingdom is partying. You are lying in a pool of blood, infection setting in, completely ignored. While Henry is planning the baptism, your body is shutting down. Puerperal fever, the silent killer of women, takes over. You are burning up, delirious and quietly dying while the DJ plays the next song at the party downstairs. 12 days later, you are gone. And here is the sickest, darkest punchline of them all: you become Henry's favorite wife. Not because you were the smartest, not because you were the prettiest, but because you had the good sense to die before you could become annoying. You never got old, you never got saggy, you never nagged him about his leg ulcers. In his mind, you remain the perfect silent obedient ghost of 25 forever. You are the only wife buried next to him. A romantic gesture or just Henry rewarding you for knowing exactly when to exit the stage. The verdict: Jane Seymour didn't win by living. She won by dying on schedule. She secured the legacy, but she paid for it with her life. So I have to ask, was being the favorite worth rotting in a crypt at 28? Let me know in the comments. POV, you are Anne of Cleves, superpower accidentally, friend zoning the most dangerous man in Europe and getting paid a fortune to do it. Let's be real for a second. If Jane Seymour was the tragedy, your story is the ultimate romantic comedy or maybe a survival thriller, depending on how you look at it. You are the Catfish Queen, the only player in this bloody franchise who managed to walk away with her head, her dignity, and a bank account that would make Elon Musk jealous. Your nightmare begins with a classic Tinder disaster 16th century style. Henry is lonely. He's scrolling through the Renaissance dating app, aka his ambassador's reports, and he stops on a portrait of you painted by Hans Holbein. Now, Holbein is a genius, but he's also the original Facetune artist. He paints you looking symmetrical, glowing, and calm. Henry takes one look at your filtered profile pic, feels a twitch in his royal loins, and immediately swipes right. He thinks, yes, this is the one. Order her on Amazon Prime and ship her to England immediately. But then the unboxing video goes wrong. When you finally arrive in England, Henry decides to pull a romantic prank. He loves cosplay, so he dresses up in a disguise, sweaty obese, and smelling like a plague pit mixed with old cheese, and lunges at you in a dark room. He expects you to swoon at his majesty. Instead, you recoil. You look at this bloated, wheezing stranger trying to grope you, and you basically scream, "Ew, get away from me, stranger danger." Big mistake. Huge. Henry's fragile male ego shatters into a billion pieces. You didn't just reject a man, you rejected God's deputy on earth. The humiliation is instant. Henry storms out furiously, changing his outfit, and suddenly the narrative shifts. He can't admit that you rejected him, so he decides that you are the problem. This is where the gaslighting 101 class begins. On your wedding night, nothing happens. Why? Because Henry's royal machinery is broken. The man has been rotting from the inside out for years, but instead of admitting he has erectile dysfunction, he blames your looks. He calls you the Flanders mare, literally calling you a horse. He tells the entire court you are ugly, you smell bad, and you have saggy assets. Do you think that's true? Of course not. You were a perfectly normal, attractive woman, but a narcissist will burn the whole world down before admitting he can't get it up. So 6 months later, the divorce papers slide across the table. Most women would panic. Catherine of Aragon fought for years. Anne Boleyn screamed until the end. But you are smarter than all of them combined. You read the room, you realize that being Henry's wife is a death sentence, but being his ex-wife, that's the jackpot. You don't cry, you don't argue, you look him in the eye and say, "You know what, Henry? You're right. Let's just be siblings. I'll be your beloved sister." Jackpot. Henry is so relieved he doesn't have to fabricate a treason charge that he opens a royal vault. He gives you Richmond Palace. He gives you Hever Castle and Boleyn's childhood home, the ultimate shade. He gives you a massive annual allowance. You become the highest-ranking woman in England after the Queen and his daughters. While Henry's next wives are getting beheaded or dying in childbirth, you are living your best life. You are single rich, eating the best food, gambling, and outliving Henry by a decade. The irony, being called ugly, was the shield that saved your life. If Henry had been attracted to you, you might have ended up dead in a crypt. Instead, you secured the bag and dodged the bullet. Who's laughing now, Henry? Let's see. POV, you are Katherine Howard. Age Gen Z, literally a teenager, barely 17. The vibe. A horror movie disguised as a romantic fairy tale. If Anne of Cleves was the comedy relief of this franchise, your story is the tragedy that makes everyone stop laughing. History written mostly by old men likes to label you. They call you the bad girl, the Tudor slut, or the empty-headed party animal. But let's delete those files and call it what it actually is. You weren't a villain. You were a textbook victim of grooming. You didn't stand a chance from day one. You were raised in the Dowager Duchess's household, which sounds fancy, but in reality, it was basically a Tudor frat house with zero supervision. It was a dorm room where the doors didn't lock and the adults were asleep at the wheel. You were a child, but the men around you, they didn't see a child. They saw a free sample. First, it was your music teacher, Henry Manx. Then it was Francis Derham, a secretary who called you his wife, just to get into your bed. In 2024, these men would be on a registry. In 1540, they were just boys being boys. They taught you that your only value was your body and that love was just a transaction. Then the real nightmare begins. Your uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, a man who would sell his own mother for a tax break, throws you into the path of Henry VIII. By now, Henry is 50. He is a rotting walking biohazard. His leg is oozing, he can barely walk, and his mood swings are lethal. But when he looks at you bubbly giggly and terrifyingly young, his decaying brain hallucinates. He calls you his rose without a thorn. He thinks your youth is a magic pill that will cure his impotence and make him 25 again. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It just makes him look like the creepiest sugar daddy in history. You marry him because you have no choice. You're showered with jewels and pearls, playing the role of the doting wife to a man old enough to be your grandfather. You dance, you flirt, you try to keep him happy so you don't end up like your cousin Anne Boleyn. But you make one fatal mistake. You have a past. In the modern world, having ex-boyfriends is normal. In Henry's court, it is high treason. When your sexual resume gets leaked to the king thanks to jealous ex-lovers keeping receipts, Henry doesn't see a girl who was taken advantage of. He sees a traitor. His ego crashes. He realizes he wasn't your first. He realizes he bought used goods in his disgusting mindset. The rose without a thorn fantasy is dead, and now you have to die too. The investigation is a witch hunt. They interrogate you like a terrorist. They strip you of your title, your jewelry, and your dignity. You are dragged to the Tower of London before you even hit your 20th birthday. You aren't a stoic martyr. You are a terrified kid. You spend your final night rehearsing your execution because you are so scared of messing it up. You are beheaded not for what you did as queen, but for having a life before you met a narcissist. Do you think that's fair? The world called you a whore. But let's be brutally honest. You were a child passed around by men who should have protected you and then murdered by a king because his fragile ego couldn't handle the fact that he wasn't your only lover? That's not justice. That's a massacre. So the next time someone calls Katherine Howard the bad one, remind them she didn't fail the test, the world failed her. POV Katherine Parr. Let's get one thing straight. I didn't sign up for a fairy tale. I signed a survival contract. By the time Henry VIII set his beady eyes on me, I was already a 2-time widow, a published author, and frankly, way too old for this drama. I wanted the dashing Thomas Seymour. Instead, I got the rotting, breathless mass that was the King of England. But when a tyrant proposes, you don't say no thanks. You say, I do, because you prefer your head to remain attached to your neck. Do you blame me? My job title wasn't really queen. It was glorified hospice nurse. My daily routine involved changing the bandages on a leg that smelled like a crypt, listening to his incoherent rambling, and most importantly, stroking an ego the size of the British Empire. But here's the kicker, I almost got killed for being too smart. I made the mistake of debating religion with him. Henry, in his fragile masculinity, literally signed my death warrant while I was probably fluffing his pillows. When I found out, I didn't run. I went full Meryl Streep. I rushed to his bedside, summoned some Oscar-worthy tears, and fed him the one line every narcissist craves. Oh, your majesty, I'm just a silly, foolish woman. I only debated you to distract you from your terrible pain. And guess what? He swallowed it. Hook, line, and sinker. Can you believe the audacity? A few months later, the king took his last breath and the whole world finally exhaled. I didn't just survive, I won. I married my true love before Henry's body was even cold. I didn't beat Henry VIII with beauty, darling. I beat him because my brain was made of absolute flint. So, there you have it. The curtain falls on the bloodiest reality show in history. Let's look at the scoreboard. Jane Seymour literally died just to secure the title of the favorite. Anne of Cleves. She used her supreme emotional intelligence EQ to secure the bag and live in luxury. Smart move, right? Then there was poor Katherine Howard, a naive lamb who paid for her innocence with her blood, and finally, Katherine Parr, who had to weaponize her high IQ just to make it to the morning light. It's brutal, isn't it? In that psychotic Tudor era, women were given a binary choice. You could either submit and die, or you could manipulate the manipulator. And as for Henry VIII, history books love to paint him as this great monarch. Please, let's call a spade a spade. He wasn't a hero. He was the original toxic ex, a walking red flag who just happened to have a crown and an executioner on speed dial. So, if you ever find yourself time traveling back to the Tudor court, I have only one piece of professional advice for you, run. Don't pack. Don't say goodbye, just run until your lungs burn. Smash that like and subscribe button if you are incredibly thankful that your exes can't legally behead you in the 21st century. See ya on the safe side of history.
All right, let's be brutally honest for a second.
We just watched 4 women play Russian roulette with a king who had more red flags than a communist parade.
Jane died to be the favorite. Anne of Cleves took the money and ran.
Howard paid the ultimate price for being a naive kid, and Parr literally had to lie through her teeth just to keep her head.
I have to ask, who actually won this game? Is it better to be a dead hero or a rich reject? If you were trapped in a room with Henry VIII, would you fight, submit, or manipulate the manipulator?
Drop your survival strategy in the comments. I'm dying to know.